So my name is Serhat, and this is my first time in Kiev, and I think this DevOps Days is awesome. So thank you guys. So again, I'm working at Opsgenie, and I'm also a DevOps Days organizer, like a bunch of other people here. I'm organizing DevOps Days Istanbul with other folks, and we have the DevOps Days in September. So if you want to submit your talk, you have still a few weeks left. So we welcome all the talks. And if you want to join again, if you want to see like cool stuff and eat some great food, again, come to Istanbul. And I also run some meetups. So again, if you're just hanging around in Istanbul, let me know, reach out to me on Twitter, and we will arrange a meetup and hopefully have a nice time with you guys. And also I'm on Twitter at SRHTCN without my vowel letters. So I know that there are a bunch of system admins and like network engineers here, so probably you know what is on-call duty, what is on-call. But I just want to give a short definition, just to be on the same page. So on-call simply means you should be available for work anytime, especially during an emergency, during your shift. This is a short description. I don't want to talk about it more. So who loves to be on call? Loves. You love to be on call. Oh, awesome. Now, okay, this doesn't work. So, who doesn't want to be on call? Like, who hates on call? Okay, a little bit more. Who doesn't care and just have lunch? Okay. So, probably it's not optional. You have to be, like, someone has to be on call. This is mostly because nowadays we run always-on services, and someone should take care of those services. And the impact of downtime and performance degradation, I can divide it into three. And first one is, of course, direct revenue loss. And if you are running, for example, an e-commerce company, and like if you are down, you are going to lose a lot of money. And actually, there's a research on the data center outages costs, and simply a data center lost close to $9,000 per minute in 2016. If they're down, it can change depending on what you do, of course, but again, the impact is huge. And also, it means if you are down, if you have some sort of performance degradation, it means you have unhappy users, and nowadays you have a bunch of other options, so you might go somewhere else. And also there is this loss of credibility, so they don't trust you anymore, and it's hard to measure, but it might have a long-term effect on your business. Also, there is this, I didn't put it here, but loss of opportunity. So if you are down, they might go somewhere else again. And the impact of an unhealthy on-call culture is very similar. Actually, it's the same, and an additional disadvantage with unhappy employees. So they get burnout, and simply they leave after a while. And or we will talk about this later. There might be more severe consequences. So you have to have a healthy on-call culture to build a sustainable company if you are running an always-on service. But there's a problem, right? Most people hate on-call. We've seen the hands. Most people hate on-call, mostly because you get so many useless alerts, right? You just don't know what to do, or they are garbage. So that's mostly the case. But the thing is, also there is this stress involved in being on-call. Just waiting to get a call, and it's a very stressful thing. So I love this video. So if you haven't watched it, go ahead. I will share the presentation on my Twitter account. So again, you can see it there as well. Robert Sapolsky, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing right, but says like we love stress when it is the right amount of stress, and stress actually can be something can be very useful, especially in case of an emergency. So it can help you, but it shouldn't be something recurring. Like it's not for nothing. Like that you don't have roller coaster rides going for 3 weeks, right? It should be something transient. It should be occurring in an overall safe environment. It should be occurring in a safe context. And although we acknowledge that there is this stress element, stress factor of being on call, we should not give up. So we should try to do our best. And now I'm going to talk about like list 6 important things that I identified to make an on-call culture healthier. So first one is transparency. So transparency is always important, right? Transparency is important for company culture, and transparency is also very important for on-call for your on-call culture as well. And now we are going to see some specific examples and how do we implement this transparency. First one is if you are hiring new engineers, so talk with them before actually hiring them and tell them that they are going to be on call. Don't make it a surprise. It's going to be a very huge surprise, right? You are going to get called during night, so don't make that. Don't be careful about that. And also, so let's say you don't have this option and maybe you are making a big change. Again, you should communicate that. You should tell your employees that they're going to be on call, they're going to put in the rotations, they're going to get called, and because not everyone agrees to be on call, right? And it's okay because not everyone wants to put their free time waiting for a call, and it's totally okay. And maybe you should let some people go. That's also fine. And the second important thing is Valdo here? No, okay. He used all the GIFs, so he almost used this one. So this is my only GIF, actually. So you should set responsibilities of on-call. What I mean is, so you should tell on-call, for example, of course, carry their mobile phone with them, have an internet access, carry their laptop with them. You should have, Waldo is here, okay, service level objectives. We are gonna, I think, have a open space discussion about this. I'm looking forward to it. You should have specific service level objectives and actually discuss them and define them. And also, in the case of a complex incident, not every incident is the same. So, in the case of a complex incident, there are new roles like incident commander, subject matter experts, maybe someone who can write everything what is going on and what happened at what time. And those responsibilities should be defined earlier, and you should have a very specific defined roles and responsibilities because it helps a lot to be to have a structured thing, especially during a high stress situation. And also, you should be careful about the availability of your employees. So I like this bit because at Opsini we also don't expect engineers to do any feature development during their own call. We tried it; it didn't work. It made it harder to estimate the work, and sometimes we don't get an alert. Sometimes we get a bunch of alerts. So it might change. So we decided that we should do that and. Instead, if engineer has some free time, we expect engineer to improve monitoring, alerting, work on the dashboards, work on the alerting, and all that stuff. So it really helps to spend time on these things as well. So also, for example, if let's say there was a big incident and on-call engineers spent their all night working on the incident, then you should be clear on if they should come to work late, maybe next day, or maybe they should skip the whole day because they already worked and spent their time and they need to sleep. So you should hopefully make it written, make it available to everyone. So it's not word of mouth. It's something that everyone should follow and be respectful. And the second one is sharing responsibilities. It's very important because, as also Valdo talked, we put a lot of pressure on operations engineers, and it might lead to burnout. And the best way is sharing responsibilities because often you have many more developers than operations engineers, so it helps a lot. And it starts with creating fair schedules. So What it means is, first, you should avoid inappropriate load and underload. Load, for example, if you put an engineer on call for a whole month, of course, it's gonna lead some problems. And if you put an engineer once in a month, so then engineer is gonna have a problem with practical knowledge, and he's gonna have a hard time during incidents, and probably will lead to increased time resolution, and probably it's gonna it will be more stressful for the engineer. And also, there is this term, follow the sun. I'm not sure if you have ever heard about it, but if you have, I know that in Ukraine, there are a lot of outsourcing companies, so you might have another team in US, right? And you have a team here. So if possible, you should create schedules that follows the sun. What I mean, you should be on call during your business hours, and it's awesome because now you don't have to get up in the middle of the night and work on a critical issue. Now you can actually make it a part of your job. Of course, I know that this is not possible for every company, but again, if you can, follow the sun. And one of the most important things, of course, we already talked about it in other talks, but putting developers on call is very important. There are some reasons. First one is, so we have more availability needs than ever. We have microservices, we have more complex systems, and those systems require more resiliency, more reliability, more availability. So often developers of those services are the best people to solve those problems. And that is why we need to put developers on call. Also, there is this very famous saying from Werner Vogel's Amazon CTO: "You built it, you run it." So when you put developers in the on-call schedules, they actually experience the problems in the first hand, and they get the alert. They are not distracted. They actually feel the pain. Then they start caring about testing, things like testing, logging, monitoring. And actually, all those operational, what we call operational stuff now, becomes important for them. So we need to make engineers responsible for what they build. This is very important. Also, it helps aligning incentives between management and development teams, because now management knows how much they spend, how much developers spend their time on this operational work. They can actually spend time, let them spend time on things like building resilient systems and automate stuff. And also, this is very important. And escalations. So escalations is a big factor in reducing the stress, because there are, for example, on-call might not be available all the time, although you expect them to be available. Something might come up. So we are humans, I don't know. So you have to, you need to have an escalation backup, and and when that happens, then on-call doesn't feel very bad, because there's already someone called after a while, and now you know that it's going to be solved, and you need to have clearly defined escalation paths. Hopefully, if you have you define different priority levels for incidents, and then you can alert, for example, if there's a priority one incident, it's a huge one, and you can alert the whole team, for example, after a minute. And also, escalations helps because, for example, on-call solve the problem, but don't know what to do, right? And in that case, instead of calling the best friend, if you have someone in the schedule, if you have someone you can escalate and work on this together, it also helps, because now you don't, on-call doesn't feel stressed, doesn't feel obligated, doesn't because also it's the other person's job, right? And also, it's very important to get ready for wartime, get ready for the incidents, what I mean planning and preparation. And we should accept that humans and machines will break, and it's not gonna, they will have problems, there will be incidents, so we need to plan and prepare for that. And it starts with onboarding and training. Onboarding and training don't make it perfect, but it makes it a lot safer, a lot less stressful for the people. And it starts with explaining the basics of the on-call schedules, maybe escalations. How do you do it? How do we plan everything? How do we decide these things? And set up the on-call people's notification rules. And then giving access to the right tools is very important because like if there's a problem and on-call needs to call someone else to actually fix the problem, it doesn't work, right? And that is why you need to give access to the right tools. Also, there's this term called shadowing. We use this technique as well in DevOps Genie. So if there's someone new to the on-call, you put them in a shadow schedule and with a senior people. So like there's an incident and both senior guys and new on-call engineer gets the same alert and work on the same alert at the same time. So it's learning by doing. Also, it feels a lot safer for the new on-call. Also, training is very important in the case of on-call. Again, because it reduces the stress a lot. And you should have regular on-call training sessions and practice incident scenarios, hopefully simulate them. And with an incident commander, you need to you should try solving the problem, and it's fun. And maybe you should celebrate it afterwards. So again, it should be something recurring, something repeatable. So because people will forget about things, and training is very important to reduce the stress. And again, documentation. So documentation is very important. Even if you automate something, you should write how did you automate it, how these things run, and maybe the steps, how it works. And if you don't automate it, you should definitely write it. And in the case of on-call, what we call there's runbooks. Runbooks are ways to define steps to help you resolve the incident, hopefully. Or at worst case, it helps you start investigating the incident. And it gives a lot of confidence in the case of a problem. And but again, you need to care about these documents. You need to care about your runbooks and keep them up to date. And if you are, for example, using a runbook in bunch of different alerts, then you should consider using runbook links, which is like a link to the runbook, or if your on-call system supports it, it's better. But because keeping them all up to date is very hard. And also, when it comes to preparation, so you need to define stages of incident management, and it comes with preparation. So it's all we define on-call schedules, escalations, and it continues with detection and alerting. So you set up your monitoring, you set up your thresholds, and you create your alerting. Then, when there's an incident, the third stage is containment. So your first goal is not to fix everything, instead, stop the bleeding. Because in the case of especially complex incidents, it is hard to solve every problem and bring the system in a healthy state. Instead, we just our first goal is to stop the bleeding and just try to not make it worse. And then remediation comes into play, and we actually, in this stage, try to solve fix everything and bring the system in the healthy state. And then analysis is also very important because it will help you write what happened and help you avoid similar mistakes, similar incidents in the future, and help you analyze what happened and how you can improve it. Because also you should have measured everything to make the analysis a lot better and healthier. And the fourth one is building resilient and sustainable systems. So this is like a generic, very important thing, but I had to put it. And I was talking with one of the DevOps Days organizers, co-organizers, Chris, and he saw my title, and he said it's easy, just build resilient and healthy systems, and don't create out of alerts. So that is also one way, but it requires a lot of time, a lot of money to build resilient and sustainable systems. But if you don't have resilient and sustainable systems, you will get a lot of actual alerts and incidents. So no matter what you do, you will have problems with the on-call. And of course, you need to automate everything. If possible, you need to if there's there is a manual thing, and you need to automate it. Then you need to care a lot about observability of your applications. And of course, you need to care about logging and collect important metrics for you. Depending on your abstraction level, it might change. And nowadays, with the microservices, nanoservices, functional services, whatever you call it, distributed tracing also becomes very important. So you need to care about that as well. And after all of this, like, you need to define important thresholds, create the actual others you need to care about. And probably you know the monkey, right? Netflix Chaos Monkey. Everyone talks about it. I'm not sure if anyone breaks things on production. Anyone breaks things on production? 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, awesome! Better than I expected. It doesn't mean that you break your production. It means you simulate, you try to experience an actual problem, and as you know it, you can solve it faster, because it's like if it's happening in the middle of the night and you don't know what to do, probably you are going to have a hard time, right? And not probably, certainly they will break and it will happen. So it is better to test it before and control it before. And fifth one is creating actionable alerts. So what is an actionable alert? Actionable alert is an alert that actually is an alert. So it is actually something important. And it has the necessary context and necessary, it helps you solve the problem faster. And again, it's actionable alerts is first you define what matters to you. It's very important. So don't like if you create an alert and if you see it and just close it, then you shouldn't create it, right? And you should prioritize and filter out useless alerts again. And very important, you shouldn't page for the alerts that you can fix in the morning. Instead, you can maybe send a message to Slack. You can create a Jira ticket, but you shouldn't page people for this. And routing the alerts to the right people is very hard nowadays because we have all those microservices. We don't know who is responsible for what. It's tricky, but it is very important to solve the incident faster. And also, it is less stressful for the on-call because now on-call gets the alert and like he or she isn't the right person to solve the problem, and then things get complicated, resolution time increase, a lot of problems happens because of we routed the alerts to the wrong person. So it is very important to care about routing. And we need to have the necessary context on the alerts. So how it can be done? First of all, you can use runbooks, and you can attach, for example, logs, important logs, or maybe monitoring details and metrics onto the alerts automatically. And for example, at Opsgenie, we spend a lot of time designing this, and Opsgenie can help you actually build these kind of automations. So you don't have to do the context switching. Instead, you can see for example, logs of your service. Maybe even attach, for example, we can attach the Datadog's dashboard onto the alert automatically, and then you don't have to go switch to the Datadog to see something important, and it's actually on your alert immediately. This is very important because it helps you solve the problem a lot faster, and it gives you a context that at least that will help you start investigating the issue. And the last one is, of course, learning from your experiences. If you don't learn from our experiences, if you don't collect necessary data, if you don't act on them, of course, we cannot improve our on-call culture. And we always talk about blameless postmortems, right? I have to talk about this as well in learning part, of course. There's no point of saying this person created this problem or this person didn't respond to the others within the necessary within the first 5 minutes, and then things got escalated because you need to be prepared for things like this before, and it is never people's mistake. It is because you didn't spend necessary time on automating something, you didn't spend necessary time on planning your on-call schedules and escalations. It is never people's mistake, so don't blame people. Instead, like in a postmortem, you should define what happened, timeline of the events, and maybe customer effects, so it will help both you and your users to see that. And also you should define some action items so that you can think about them and actually try to avoid the same same incidents happening in the future. And there are some important metrics you need to collect. For example, on-call times of your employees so that you can maybe distribute the load later. Maybe mean time to acknowledge, mean time to resolve the incident. And hopefully these should be also, you can see them based on the for each team, and you can take necessary actions later. There are also a bunch of other, there might be a bunch of other metrics, but the important thing is you should log everything happened onto the alert, like this person saw the alert, this person took this acknowledge action, and maybe this person did this, and also every action taken needs to be added as a note on the alert because it's a chaotic situation and it helps a lot to see all those in the same place. And I'm not sure if this is also common here, but we see in Europe, it's much more common to get paid for being on call. I'm not sure if this is the case in US. No, it's not the case in US. So if possible, if it's you need to pay for on call, and I've seen some people getting paid for the number of alerts they get. So if you are getting a lot of alerts, so it might be a good thing for you. But again, tricky. So you need to at least again give some maybe let your employees come late at work, maybe just skip the next day in case of an incident, especially if you are not paying for those extra hours. So we talked about six important steps. We started with transparency, sharing responsibilities, and putting developers in the on-call schedules. Then we talked about the third thing, getting ready for wartime, which simply means preparation and planning. And the fourth one was building resilient and sustainable systems, which is simply spending a lot of time on automation, monitoring, and things that will help you actually get less alerts. And fifth one, it was creating actionable alerts, the alerts that you can actually act on, the alerts that matters to you, and have the necessary context on them. And the last one was collecting the necessary metrics and report on them and learning from your experiences. But the most important thing is, as your people care about you, they spend their time on your services instead of spending their time with their family. So you should care about your people as well, and do all the things we talked about in this presentation, and actually help on-call become on-call, help on-call become a better experience for them. And I also wrote a white paper. If you are interested on creating actionable alerts, what is an actionable alert, like how to attach a context onto the alert. So you might want to take a look at this. I see some pictures taken, so waiting a bit. Okay, these are my references. We write a lot about these things in opsgenie.com/blog, our blog page. Also, we have an engineering blog, engineering.opsgenie.com, which we generally write more technical stuff. We have a lot of stuff around serverless. Some stuff are coming about Kubernetes, mostly from our experiences, real-life experiences. Also, I suggest you read the Google's SRE book as well. And there is this nice book talking about how firefighters do the incident management and how it can be applied to the IT. It's called Incident Management for Operations. Also, it's an awesome book, so I definitely suggest it as well. Then that's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the great presentation. People, we don't have much time, but let's go for like 2 questions. Oh, here was the first one.
I think it's going to be a tough one.
Thank you. I have a question. I know that Opsgenie have ability to add action to alerts with Marit. I'm
okay.
not sure that I pronounce it right.
Yeah, Marit.
And I know that a lot of people use that ability to restart their servers or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that is good practice. What is good practice to use action in alerts?
Okay, this is a very specific question about Opsgenie's one feature. Marit is an integration server, which simply if you don't want to have there are multiple use cases, of course, but if you don't want to have an public-facing HTTP endpoint, you install the Marit, and Marit actually connects from the inside to out. So it also helps with the auto-remediation. So if something happens, let's say, and it can automatically, for example, an alert is created, an alert can trigger the Marit integration, and it can actually restart the server, for example, or maybe you can do a bunch of other things. Again, if you require something like restarting after an alert, it's probably not something that Opsgenie should do. It should be automated, it should be prevented earlier or handled somewhere else. I usually do it with custom actions. So you define a custom action, and it's actually seen in the web UI or mobile UI like an acknowledge, close, snooze action. For example, create a status page or retrieve the logs. And you actually close that action, and then you make the action. So probably you will require some time to investigate the issue, then make that call.